the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please call the roll.
Council agency members Barnwell.
Here.
Falcone. Here. Horton.
Here.
House.
Here.
Schneider.
Here.
Williams.
Here.
Mayor and Chair Bloom.
Here. Okay.
Item number 1.
Thank you.
Employee recognition, service award pins.
Okay, Mr. Armstrong.
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of the council, as you know, every month we recognize employees who are receiving their service award pins, and we have no employees here to receive pins this month, but I do want to recognize or read into the record those employees who are receiving pins. And we're honoring 13 employees this month who have 160 years of experience with the city. With 20 years, Mike McGrew, police sergeant, Bob Evans, carpenter in the Public Works Department, and Ron Chandler, who's a senior electronics and communications technician in Public Works. With 15 years, Lori Prescott, who's an accounting assistant in finance, Marie Cruzenberry, who's a library assistant 1, and Mary Adams, the executive assistant in the waterfront. With 10 years, Margaret Duville, who's a computer programmer at Administrative Services, Andy Hill, who's a police officer, David Shoemaker, who's a senior engineering technician in Public Works, and George Keir, who's a painter in Public Works.
Okay.
And with 5 years, Chris Short, who's a senior plans examiner in community development, George Johnson, who's associate planner in Parks and Rec, and Rick Hubbard, who's a harbor patrol officer at the waterfront.
Okay. Congratulate all those employees who've received their anniversary pins or will receive them. Are there any changes to the agenda?
No, there aren't, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Public comment. I'd like to welcome the students from Toba, Japan, and also the students from Santa Barbara who will be going to Toba, Japan next week, I believe. It's very nice that you're here. Mr. Maxwell, I think, yes, would like to come up and speak. Mr. Maxwell is head of the Toba Sister City Committee. There.
Mayor Bloom, council members, I'm Gary Maxwell, president of the Santa Barbara Toba Sister City organization, and I'm here with 8 junior high school students that have been selected to participate in our 15th year of student exchange between Toba, Japan and Santa Barbara. The students
Gary, could you pull up your microphone?
Sure.
It's there.
Better?
Because it's on, yes.
Still better?
There it is.
Good. Okay. These students have been selected carefully. They fill out an application, have an interview, and are selected through our committee here in Toba for this. We pick each year. Normally we have 4 students from Santa Barbara and 4 from Toba. It's worked out usually 2 girls and 2 boys. They homestay with each family in the respective city. This gives them a chance to get better ordinated with the culture and habits and food and these types of things. Also, as the students arrived last Friday and they leave Monday from Toba, and they have quite a schedule of going to see things, do things, pool parties, and many of these. They also get to see the city council and usually see the mayor, which is important, and vice versa. When they get to Toba, the same protocol is custom there too. And I'd like to turn it over to Takako Wakita, who's going to say some more. Thank you.
Okay. We had a lovely visit from Toba just a few months ago from the mayor.
That's right.
And so,
end of May,
Yes.
we celebrated 40th anniversary of our relationship. And then Toba is the oldest sister city of our 7 sister cities. Anyway, I'd like to introduce the students ambassadors from Toba, but instead of I am calling them their names, I let them say their names themselves because it will be a great experience for them. But first of all, I have to explain to them that you council members do not dress up like this all the time. So today is a special day.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
はい、立ってください。はい、そしてね、名前を言ってください。こっち行ってね。
My name is Makito.
Hello.
Nice to meet you.
My name is Kai. Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
My name is Miho. Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
My name is Haruka. Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Okay, now next one is a chaperone who is a school teacher, junior high school teacher. She teaches English.
My name is Yuki Kinoshita. Good to meet you. I look like a child, but
Yes.
I'm 24 years old. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I will ask Santa Barbara students who are going to go to Toba.
Yes.
Say your name and school.
My name is Amber Rockwood, and I'm going to be a freshman at Dos Pueblos High School.
That's great.
My name is Chris Lancashire, and I'm going to Anacapa School.
Yeah.
My name is Christina Garcia, and I'm going to Dos Pueblos High School.
My name is Ian Keneally, and I'm going to Marymount Middle School.
That's good. That's great. What a nice group of people.
Now the chaperone.
Okay.
Council members, Your Honor. My name is William Zeladon, and I'm a junior high teacher at Santa Barbara Junior High. It's my 11th year, and it's an honor for me to represent our city in Toba, Japan.
Well, we're honored to have you represent us. They call you Mr. Z, I
Yes,
think.
ma'am. Mr.
There you go.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's very wonderful.
Thank you very much for giving us this opportunity to come here. Thank
Okay,
you.
and we want to thank Chris, too, for hosting that wonderful party on Sunday. Mr. Horton and I went to that pool party, and it was very nice. So thank you for doing that.
Absolutely. Japanese students do not show their emotions much, but they are having wonderful, wonderful time here.
There you go.
Yes.
That's very good. Thank you. Thanks for coming. Appreciate it. Okay. I have a few more members of the public who would like to speak, and then we'll go to the council members. Richard Walworth, followed by Elisa Morgan. We got a microphone right over there.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor. Whoops, there we go. My name is Richard Walrath. I'm speaking as a private citizen, however, also as a person who, for as long as I can remember, has advocated for the needs of people with disabilities in the area. Last week, KEYT broadcast a news story concerning a young man who is a quadriplegic in a wheelchair. His name is Nick Bain. John Palmentary, the reporter on this story, talked about how Bain travels daily down to the Lower East Side to go to see his counselor at Tri-Counties Regional Center. And after getting off the bus, part of his travels down Montecito Street usually have to be done in the side of the road because there are no curb cuts in the area. Palmentary said in his report that Bain has been hit about 5 times by cars in his chair and knocked down at least twice. In speaking to the Public Works spokesman on the story about this, Palmentary said that the Public Works person told him that Bain must comply with a particular process that Public Works has for letting them know what curb cuts need to be done, and that the next time, whenever that is, the next time that curb cuts are to be taken care of, that they would look at dealing with those particular curb cuts. Being that he's been knocked down at least twice, and that he's a quadriplegic with no strength or ability to break his fall in any way, any of these incidents could have led to him being seriously injured or killed. That makes this a public safety issue. And I believe that this council over the years, the city over the years has positively and promptly responded to the needs of the disabled community, and I hope that she'll do that this time by looking very seriously at trying to expedite this so-called process in trying to deal with this so that we won't have anyone seriously injured or killed in the future in that area. And that's basically all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay. Well, and the fact that the Tri-County Regional Center is over there now is probably the biggest issue. So we'll see what we can do about getting that put to the top of the list. Elisa Morgan, followed by Kenneth Locke.
Good afternoon, Mayor Bloom.
Hello.
And City Council members. I'm here. My name is Lisa Morgan, and I'm a registered nurse of 48 years. I've nursed across the country from Hawaii to Washington, D.C., and for 26 years here in Santa Barbara. I chose Santa Barbara because my doctor in Los Angeles told me that I should find a safe place with low crime rate to heal myself after nursing injury. I'm standing on my tiptoes. Okay. On July 26th of this year, I read a Santa Barbara News Press report that said, the bottom line, crime is down, the City Council contends. That was a surprise to me because I respectfully beg to differ with the council members on that issue. After reading that statement, I became curious and checked the facts with the police crime statistics of Santa Barbara and found that, in fact, crime had increased over the years, not decreased. In the last 3 years alone, my car was vandalized. I have been the victim of assault and battery. And just last month, my car was stolen from the parking lot in front of my apartment. When I told my doctor that my car had been stolen, he sympathized with me, and he said, I know just how you feel. You feel violated because my car has been stolen too. So for my doctor and myself, the bottom line is crime has increased 100% because it hit us both and literally hit us. Every time I email people to tell them that the crime has been committed on me, they say, in Santa Barbara? They're very shocked, as well as I was. It makes me wonder where the City Council gets their data for lower crime statistics. Neither of the data agrees with the Santa Barbara police crime statistics, nor do they agree with the citizens of Santa Barbara on whom crime has been visited. The bottom line is, I am not protected. My doctor is not protected, and that is not acceptable. One of the reasons for the increase in crime in Santa Barbara is due to the lowered number of officers, which has come down to 125 officers. Our population continues to fluctuate every day, as you well know, because of the commuting workers that come here every day, and because of the tourists that come every day. It gets up to about 125,000 people.
You need to wrap up.
Yes, and so that ratio of citizen to police officer is very slim. I just wish to say that I implore you, and especially and respectfully beg of you, that to pay our police officers what they deserve, at least what our police department, what other police departments give to officers for putting their lives on the line for us, and so that they will have enough money at least maybe to live closer to the community that they serve and protect. Thank you.
Thank you. Ken Locke, followed by Jill Moore.
My name is Kenneth Locke. I'm a member of the homeless community. This is a continued effort on my part, small effort, I have to say, to try to educate the community and make it intelligent. I made a sign today that says, my comments are in relation to the arts in the community. I have a sign that says, religion is now obsolete. Our whole relationship with In God We Trust and One Nation Under God. I don't know what God this is that we're talking about here, what religion we're talking about here. It's kind of funny. One day, we have a separation of philosophy and state. I'm bringing to the table the whole concept of what a genius is in relation to the philosophy of aesthetics, and how the genius comes in due season to kind of atone everybody for their division in relation to the service they provide to the community. It brings us to a higher level of integration, higher level of intelligence. I think I've mentioned to you in the past. I have it's kind of a funny ensemble I have here. Genius is now Lord. It's kind of, there's Christians, hoping they're aware of the scripture in Hebrews that speaks of the priesthood in the order of Melchizedek. And this priesthood has evolved through the ages, and what I'm claiming to do is, I represent today's version of that priesthood that comes and bears itself, the first fruit of the gospel. And I hope everybody can get clued in on this. And it's kind of funny, free art appraisals. It's kind of funny because what I'm bringing to the table is actually Judgment Day for the artists, scientists, and so it's kind of a funny way to, free art appraisals kind of thing. It's let's see who actually comes and gets the appraisal. And it's kind of like what Bob Dylan was saying about in that one song he wrote. But thank you.
Thank you. Jill Moore, followed by Eric Moore.
Good afternoon. I'm here today to ask you to give the police department the money they need to make our neighborhood safe again. I've lived on Elizabeth Street on the east side for 9 years. My street is filled with professionals and hardworking families. We are all homeowners. Since May, I have been witness to 3 gang fights in front of my house, 2 of which my 5-year-old daughter also witnessed, one of which involved us ducking for cover from gunfire. I'll ask you one question. Do you want your child or grandchild to ever have to witness a gang fight, let alone be caught in the middle of one? It was the most terrifying moment of my life when I realized I could not keep my daughter safe in our neighborhood any longer. The police work so hard and are incredibly responsive to the things that have been going on. They just don't have the manpower to be proactive and cover the areas that are in dire needs. We are losing the battle when it comes to gangs having power in our neighborhood. They have no respect for the innocent around them, and it won't be long before someone is quite literally caught in the crossfire. Please help the police department do what they need to help us take back our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Eric Moore, followed by Lazarus.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Eric Moore. My wife just spoke. There have been a number of incidents in our street of people who don't live on our street because just by the nature of where they decided is their turf. Fist fight in the middle of the daytime, the fight with the gunshot in the middle of the daytime. These were at 4:30 in the afternoon, the middle of the day. They don't seem to care that there's repercussions. They don't care if they're seen. Nobody seems to worry about that. Just last week, a melee assault, 20 people in a fight, kicking a man on the ground in the head. My wife had to watch. This is 9 o'clock at night, a little later. I came home from work late, so but I worry about them when I'm not here. I go to work, and I don't know if they're safe. I used to. We've been there for 10 years, and in the last 6 months, it's just ridiculous. It's exponential, the rise in violence in that area. We start to want to know if, it shows that they don't fear repercussion. We worry about the kids on our streets being indoctrinated into the gangs. We've got little kids on our streets that watch these things, and some of the little boys think it's cool. I worry about maybe the programs that used to exist don't exist still, to show them that maybe that isn't a good idea. That maybe there's better things to do than be just cool and fight. I urge you to consider paying your police a little bit more, making sure that you do match maybe Ventura and Santa Maria, which are your direct competition. These are where these people are going to live. Several people at my work at UCSB have left town, because they can't afford to live here, or they feel that there's a better thing for them, elsewhere, because for all the obvious reasons. We all know why.
Could you wind up, please?
Yes,
We're out
ma'am.
of time.
I just want to do. I just hope that we can do something before one of my neighbors gets killed or hurt. Coming home to yellow police tape around your neighborhood block is a scary thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Lazarus? Followed by Gail Goldberg.
Okay, well, my name's Lazarus here, and my clock just jumped again. I know you guys cut me off last week. I just want to talk about some things like, well, I think we should raise the penalty for crosswalk violations concerning pedestrians, because I think that constitutes like an aggressive act, and I think people should lose their driver's license for that. The other thing, I just want to talk about where cars come from for a minute again. Just this is part of philosophy 101 here. Maybe we should teach this at City College. Is that this alchemy that automobiles actually come from, that were invented by Henry Ford, used to be illegal, and I think we're starting to find out why. And this whole craft, well, it used to be called witchcraft, but is the basis of our current way of life. I mean, this is our foundation, which is almost as ridiculous as your costumes. But, and then I would like to say that, the city should support some things, a statement, a public statement, that no one should give money to Travis Armstrong, because if you do, I mean, this guy is going to go out and drink and drive the wrong way down Santa Barbara Street. Of course, I doubt we'll get that printed in the Santa Barbara News Press, will we? That guy's a fascist pig.
Oops, be careful. We don't do that here.
Oh, no, I do. I'll say it straight to his face. I mean, come on. He talks about me that way all the time in his opinion section. What is it? Beware the leaven of the Pharisees and the Sadducees, which is hypocrisy. That's his foundation, hypocrisy, okay? And, I can prove that. I do not make false statements. Anyway. So, and I think, for our police department, I noticed you're going to, buy some property or something, but I think instead of, building an extension of the police department, why don't you, build housing for them? I think, that seems to be the main part of their concern. They need a place to live, don't you? I mean, don't you think that every person should have a right to have a place, especially, the people who are defending us?
Could you wind up, please?
Huh? Could I? Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Gail Goldberg will be the last speaker.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Council. Of the 7 speakers that have presented their concerns to you this morning, or this afternoon, I'm losing track, I am amongst the majority of the 5 out of 7 who have stated today that we're concerned about not the safety that exists here, but the unsafe conditions that we're presently living in. I, too, am a resident of Elizabeth Street, have been for 8 years as well. And the evidence that both Jill and Eric have mentioned concerned that we are innocent and we are afraid. And that's a terrible way to live. We have a corner store that attracts people that are not necessarily living in the neighborhood. We have the Franklin Neighborhood Center. We have the East Side Public Library. We have Montecito Street that needs curb cuts. We need to have a proactive police force that has a presence and shows that they're concerned. And however that needs to happen, maybe taking funds from one section to place it in another, needs to have serious consideration. And that's for all individuals, no matter what zip code they live in Santa Barbara. So please pay attention to what we're saying. It's important. And we don't want to be fearful. We want to be happy citizens, sharing the festivities and sharing the celebration and not having to speak of the fear. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. For those of you who haven't been to council before, I see some new faces. We are not allowed by state law to talk, to discuss matters that aren't on that's not on our agenda. And so we will definitely, we've heard what you have to say and we'll definitely act on it, or put it on our agenda, but we definitely heard what you had to say, just so you know that. We have next council member committee assignment reports. Mr. Horton is anxious to tell us.
Well, this has been a good time for the Sister Cities program. And I happen to be the council liaison to that program, and the mayor and I attended, well, actually the TOBA event, but in addition to that, I wanted to report that we attended El Fandango last Saturday, which is where the visitors from Puerto Vallarta meet with the Santa Barbara people who belong to the PV Sister City program. We had a wonderful dinner. Paula Lopez was the MC, and they had a great band playing, and many of us danced on into the evening. And so it was a great time for Santa Barbara and for Sister Cities.
Thank you. And yeah, it has been a busy week between Toba, Japan, and Puerto Vallarta visiting us. Ms. Falcone?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I really want to thank all the people that came. It's so important that we hear from you, and it may seem like a scary place, but we don't bite, and we need to hear your comments, so thank you. Last week was the Mayor and Council Leadership Conference in Monterey, California, where I attended representing the city of Santa Barbara, and it was a wonderful conference, and it was actually a blessing to be in Monterey for the majority of last week because it was only 61 degrees in Monterey, which is unlike, and not muggy, so that was nice on top of all the good information. Sunday was the reception for El Presidente for the fiesta. Really, it's kind of the kickoff, and Mr. House and I were there, I believe, with the mayor, and that was also a group of 500 people who danced and ate and had a great time and talked about the new upcoming fiesta. Paula was again the MC for that. She's terrific at it. Last night was the Contractor of the Year Award, where there were many, many innovative projects. They have 16 categories now that they give awards to, and I was so impressed. I usually go every year, but it seems like every year the projects become greener and greener, more sustainable, more energy efficient, and this year was no exception. In fact, I'm honored to say that a member of our Creeks Committee of some long-standing, Daniel Wilson, and his environmental landscape and design firm won 2 awards last night. So we give hearty congratulations to Daniel and to all of the winners. It was a night of celebration and really what good design and good building can accomplish. So I think that's it. Yes, thank you.
Well, the city also gave a letter of recognition to the Green Building Coalition.
Yes,
They're really wonderful people, and they've done a good job for the city, so we gave them a letter of recognition at that dinner, too. Ms. Schneider.
Thank you. Also today, speaking of Sister Cities, another event, we had about 40 to 50 or so people from Puerto Vallarta here in this council chambers this morning, and as Mayor Pro Tem, the mayor was at another engagement, and Councilmember Horton and I welcomed them to City Hall and presented city pins, and actually there were 2 members of the Puerto Vallarta City Council here as well, and some other representatives from local governments from the area, and they saw your office. We took them through your office, Mayor. Hope that was okay. Sure. But they really appreciated being here. They're off either wine tasting or shopping at Ross this afternoon. That was on the agenda for today. So that was always fun to do what we can to promote that sisterhood throughout the world through our Sister City program. Last Friday was the Lower Mission Creek Design Subcommittee meeting. And this is going to show up on the council agenda next week. This design is actually going to be talked about and hopefully approved by the Coastal Commission at this month's meeting, and it's scheduled to be on August 11th. So we'll have a chance on the 8th to review it and comment on it before it goes to the Coastal Commission. I'm as you know, the council liaison to that design committee, and it's been many, 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 many years in the making to everything from pocket parks to bridge replacements to creek restoration to working with the community on what to do with their landscaping on their own private property to steelhead restoration, the Tidewater Goby. I mean, all these different pieces coming together. So it's really nice to see that moving forward after so many years. And stay tuned for the agenda item next week.
Okay, good. Mr. Williams?
Last week, I had the honor to be the keynote address to a number of junior high school students and students going into high school that are taking part in the Youth Leadership Conference. And these are typically, young men and women who have grown up in the neighborhoods that many of the folks who are just here were speaking of. And so my subject was, being leaders versus being thugs and what it took and to be a true leader. And so I think there's a lot of things that need to be done from that end, from the end of the young men and women that are recruited into these gangs. And Wednesday and Thursday we had a very important meetings on preservation of Naples and on the Gaviota Coast. And Councilmember House and myself attended a meeting between the Naples Coalition and Supervisor Carbajal and Supervisor Firestone. And the scope of work by the consultant that was working on it that presented to us was returned to us, and to go forward and to draw up some policy suggestions and even an ordinance for the county and the city will require about $45,000. What the city's share of that is being asked at 15, so that would show up on hopefully next week's agenda or the week after. But the time frame is very tight. And in addition to that, the EIR came out on Thursday, and there were hundreds of Santa Barbarans, residents of the city, saying that they recreate on Naples and the Gaviota Coast. That's a special place to them, and it's truly part of the Santa Barbara community, not just the Goleta or Gaviota community.
Okay, thanks for attending that. Mr. Barnwell, welcome back.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just going to speak to the troubles that the wheelchair gentleman was having. I've been working on our plan for the ADA compliance throughout the entire city. And one of the things that we've talked about is identifying these paths of preference that lead to the places where someone who's in a wheelchair might go. And the Tri-Counties Counseling Center is just one such thing. So it's much like the bike to school paths that we're trying to set up. So I just wanted you guys to know, and the person who was just here earlier, that I'll look into that tomorrow and see what we're doing to map out where these things are and then where that funding is going to be able to come from to make it work.
We actually had somebody else in here talking about it while you were gone, and we said if you were here, you would have jumped right on.
Yeah, so we'll you can contact me. The gentleman who spoke earlier, you can contact me through the Secretary of the Council, and I'll keep you abreast of what we're doing. Okay, and thank you very much for coming. It's a shame that happened.
Yeah, Mr. Horton.
Mr. Barnwell, I have had a similar interest in your absence. I go to work coming down Mitchell-Torrena Street, and in the mornings there are a number of folks in wheelchairs going down the street because there's no curb cuts. And my problem has been I haven't known where they live, and I haven't known who to contact. There's sometimes up to maybe 4 or 5 or 6 people going down the street. There's usually always someone there with them. But there's been so much traffic, I haven't had a chance to pull over and ask them where they live. So I would like to do that if you have any suggestions on who to contact.
Yeah, I think that's good. You may know, I think you might have got a cross copy, but we're redoing that underpass at Mission Street, which is a horror right now. There are no curb cuts anywhere along it. So that's, and Mr. Armstrong has those details, that's going to be coming up in the next few months.
It's
big job.
It's good to know you're interested in this, but it's not on our agenda. So.
Yeah, right.
Okay. But you are the one to contact, and also Mr. Horton. We are next to the consent calendar. You have some things to read, please. Read by title only.
Item number 3, lease agreement with Reggie Drew, doing business as Stearns Wharf Bait and Tackle. including recommendation B, that council introduce and subsequently adopt by reading of title only an ordinance of the council of the city of Santa Barbara approving a 5-year lease agreement with one 5-year option with Reggie Drew doing business as Stearns Wharf Bait and Tackle commencing on August 18, 2006 for the bait and tackle shop operating at 232 Stearns Wharf at a monthly rent of $623 or 10% of gross sales, whichever is greater. Item number 4, required redevelopment agency findings for Teen Center. Recommendation that council adopt by reading of title only a resolution of the council of the city of Santa Barbara making certain findings as required by California Health and Safety Code section 33445 in connection with the redevelopment agency of the city of Santa Barbara expenditures for a public building Teen Center at 1235 Chapala Street. Item number 7, relocated sewer easement and agreement at 907 Roble Lane, including recommendation B, that council adopt by reading of title only a resolution of the council of the city of Santa Barbara accepting a public sewer easement located at 907 Roble Lane, Santa Barbara County Assessors, parcel number 019-252-007. And item number 9, alcoholic beverage control grant assistance to local law enforcement agencies, including recommendation A, that council adopt by reading of title only a resolution of the council of the city of Santa Barbara authorizing acceptance of funding granted by Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control for the Alcoholic Beverage Control Grant Assistance Program to local law enforcement agencies project.
Okay. That was reading by title only, and we'll waive further reading without objection. Does anybody have something to take off of the did you, Mr. Barnwell, to take off the...
Excuse me, I would like number 9 to be...
Number 9? Okay.
Madam Mayor, I did notice that there are several youth council members here, and if they wanted to speak on 4, I just want to give
Number
them
4?
that opportunity.
Yes, no, but they're here probably for number 17, accepting a grant for... Are you here for 17? Yeah. I mean, I'm sure they could bend our ear on number 4, but we're moving forward here.
Let's move quicker.
Yeah. Okay. You had item 9, was it? Yes. Okay, Mr. Barnwell, you go ahead and read. You just read it, actually. Go ahead.
I apologize if this,
That's okay.
Did we discuss this last week? Was it on the agenda and now it's just a consent item? Or no. So I guess I'll direct my questions to Mr. Armstrong or who else is here that can help me with this. What we're doing here is an assistance program to help educate servers and vendors who serve alcohol to the general public, which is a good program. And then information to the community, it says, on reporting of alcohol-related offenses and established procedures for identifying and mitigating law enforcement problems at or near alcohol vendors. My question is this. I don't believe I've ever seen a list of applications to the ABC for new alcohol vendor licenses. And I wondered if we could see that, because I happen to be the council liaison to the Downtown Organizations Bar and Restaurant Group, and it always comes as a surprise to me to find out where an application is going in, what address, whether it's an expansion or a contraction, et cetera, and I just wondered if there was some way that we could set up advanced awareness of what those are and be prepared, because I'm constantly answering questions of the general public about a given license, and I know nothing about it until it's right in front of my face. So what's our policy on that, and can we expand it a little bit?
Let me let Captain Mannix answer your question.
Okay.
Captain
Thank you,
Mannix.
Captain Mannix.
Good day. When an applicant for an ABC license applies, their application is forwarded to the police department, specifically to the Detective Bureau. The application process includes a background check of our police data to bring information to light if it's a problem area or if the applicant has substantial criminal histories. Ultimately, if the recommendation is made by the police department to the ABC to approve the application simply goes through. These come through on a very regular basis. Frequently, there's a change of ownership, or there's a slight modification to the current license. It would certainly be plausible to present to council a list of pending ABC applications.
Well, I would like, as the liaison to the Bar and Restaurant Group, I would really like to get that, and I'll give you an example of why. Because of the expansion of the Santa Barbara Brewing Company, Haley and State, they were expanding their facilities, but not leapfrogging to a new location, just expanding it. And even though we have approved it as our police department, and even though the ABC had approved it, a complaint from the neighbor caused it to rise to a judicial hearing. And I was out of the loop on that until the very, very last moment, and I also was unable to realize until the last moment that the ABC had begun to conform to Santa Barbara's concerns about the issuance of new licenses. For example, on that one, they limited the license to a termination point of midnight. And in conversations with the police department, one of the big troubles with these issuance of licenses and the crowd control and all that stuff on Fridays and Saturdays is that everybody gets out at 2 a.m. So we have this giant crowd suddenly at a point in the clock. Whereas if we could stagger those closings, as we have done with that on the Santa Barbara Brewing Company, we may be able to soften and ameliorate the effects on the street. That whole discussion, I should have been aware of that, but I wasn't until it just popped right up in my face. So to stay ahead of that curve, and it also applies to the dance ordinance as well, which is coming up to us, I would greatly appreciate it, and I think maybe a cross-copy to the council also, so that when people call us on these issues, we can be savvy about it. And maybe even think it through to a new level of understanding with ABC, because we're getting to that point now, which I greatly appreciate, by the way, through your work and ABC's as well.
Very well.
Okay.
I'll pass those
Thank you.
directives on to the Detective Bureau.
Thank you. And Madam Mayor, thank you for that. I wanted to, that's a really important thing downtown, and it's getting more and more so.
Sure.
Appreciate your indulgence. Thank you.
It seems to me that the Fire and Police Commission see a list, do they? Ms. Falcone is the liaison.
No, they don't. They deal with complaints when they come up, and so we need to. I also attended in Mr. Barnwell's absence the Barn Restaurant Committee meeting yesterday, which was the pre-Fiesta Committee meeting, which I'll brief you on. But there are a number of issues here that are dovetailing into each other that maybe we should just sit down and have a little conversation about with some of the key players, Police Department, Mr. Barnwell, myself, Mr. Rose, and maybe Bob Stout from the Barn Restaurant Committee. So, thank you, Captain.
Okay, but
Thank you, Kevin.
I guess my point was that to make sure that the Fire and Police Commission are in on the loop too, because they're the citizen watchers of this. So, thank you, thanks for coming. So you don't need that voted on separately. No. Okay. Do I have a motion for the consent calendar?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We're on to item number 17.
Item number 17, acceptance of County of Santa Barbara Alcohol, Drug, and Mental Health Services Grant, fiscal year 2007, including recommendation C, that council adopt by reading of title only a resolution of the council of the city of Santa Barbara, amending resolution number 06055, the position and salary control resolution for fiscal year 2007, affecting the Recreation Division of the Parks and Recreation Department, effective August 5, 2006.
Okay, Michelle?
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Susan Young, Supervisor for Teen Programs. I'm joined with Roberta Payan. We've been doing a little transitioning. Jeff Hurley, who was very instrumental since the inception of the grant, has been transitioning out, and so Roberta Payan has joined our staff as the new project coordinator. Also in the audience is Al Rodriguez, who is the director with the county, and Lisa Gilbert, in case you have some questions that you'd like to ask to them. We're here this afternoon basically to ask for your acceptance of the grant, again, for its 5th and final year. As you know, we live in a community where we're trying to be very cognizant of youth and alcohol, and recent reports state that 80% of college students who are interviewed say that they drink. And even though our program is not targeted for college students, it's the behavior that they develop as teens that could lead into what they do as college students. So the city has been very conscious of this, and so this is why this grant, we know, has had some sure success. As we stated this afternoon, we're here because the grant, again, is offering us a $50,000 grant, which is provided through the contract with the county. The grant is funded by the state through its Safe Drug and Schools Community Program, and we're part of a coalition that creates this project access, which includes us and agencies such as Future Leaders and Fighting Back. The grant period that we're asking for is the final year, which is a 5th year, which will be through July 1st, 2006 to June 30th, 2007. We were here in January because we got a late start on last year's grant, so our presentation this afternoon won't be in-depth because not much has changed since that reporting, but we will come back if need during mid-year, and certainly we'll come back at the final end of the grant. Environmental prevention, just briefly again, what it is. Environmental prevention, as you probably are well educated on by now, actually deals with trying to establish things through the environment, and trying to, instead of dealing with the individual student, is to deal with how the environment affect what they do. It focuses on the community and the neighborhoods. Also, it affects what the individual's decisions are because of the environment. We also deal with trying to find broader solution, perhaps trying to do some policy changes that may also affect the environment and how the students or teens in general make decisions about alcohol. And it also examines the dynamics of cultural, political, and economical things. So what is our personal focus for our grant? Our focus is, of course, youth or teens and how they access to alcohol. We're especially dealing with them in the retail environment as well as in the social environment. Our goal for this program is to have fewer adults purchasing alcohol for teens, which is something that happens, as you know, and also to have fewer alcohol sales to minors in general. We're also trying to help establish a more community-friendly merchants, that is to work more closely with the merchants and establish a relationship that helps them to also avoid having youth either stealing alcohol from their agents, from their facilities, or someone selling them to them. And also we're trying to acquire skills for youth in leadership, and that way the youth themselves will be able to make more sound decisions, or they can be instrumental in helping other youth to make decisions. What have we accomplished? Just in brief, some of the things that we've accomplished over the last 4 years. We have conducted a couple of mile radius studies, half-mile radius studies of local liquor stores and the parks. As you might recall, the parks was what we did the first year. Out of what we did with the liquor stores, the teens created a report card, which we talked about in January, and this was with the off-sale liquor establishments, and they came up with some survey questions, and out of those questions, they came up with a grading system for these various different liquor stores. We have done some decoy and shoulder tap operations with the police department as funding was available, and we're still in discussions and hope that we will maybe be able to add that to some of the things that we'll do in this final year. We, of course, have had extensive training and conferences for both staff and especially for the youth that have been involved in the coalition. And this has been very important because the teens have been able to not only learn about the abuse and the problems with alcohol, but they've also learned how to find solutions such as mapping and going in and doing surveys and how they talk to merchants. And so it's had kind of an overall effect on their leadership environment. We've had very successful youth forums, which also are referred to as youth speak-outs, as you're all aware of. And we've done merchant education. For this final year, merchant education will be an instrumental part in continuing with what we're going to do during this final year. And I'm going to turn it over to Roberta, who's going to talk about the merchant education program.
Good afternoon. The goal of our merchant education efforts are to reduce underage access and lowering the liability risk for businesses in the community. With regard to these findings, we have assessed over 30 businesses, and these were some of our findings. 100% of the businesses assessed lacked some or all state-mandated signage. According to data from the ABC, 31% of the stores had sold to minors, with 25% of those in the last 5 years. Our recommendations are to continue with follow-up assessments and assistance to stores that had low scores and to promote continued community-wide prevention partnership. The outcomes for merchant education. Outcomes for the merchant education efforts would be improved store assessment scores for stores that are out of compliance, the posting of new warning signs in stores that are mandated by state, a decrease in state law violations, and a continuation of positive survey results. Overall, we've had a positive feedback from the businesses, with some stores agreeing to work with us on a continuous basis, which we thought would be a challenge. But that was not the case. If there are any challenges to overcome, one would be to secure funding for sustainability, and another challenge that has been improving in the past couple of years is the coordination between the various agencies who work in the prevention efforts. At this time, I'd like to turn it back over to Susan Young, who will talk about our project deliverables.
So in brief, for this year, for this final year, in addition to following up on all the things that we started, we are going to have another youth speak out. We had a very good speak out with CADA for this year's speak out, or well, last year, but calendar year, you know. So we're planning on having another speak out. We're going to continue with the community and store assessments, and we'll continue with our merchant education program. We'll also continue with our youth leadership development. We have our youth leadership summit, which we do with Fighting Back, that's scheduled for September 24th. And we also have our youth leaders are going to be trained by the Youth Leadership Institute at the end of August. We're also working with the county and also the Fighting Back Policy Task Force on a social host liability policy change, so we're in support of that. We do want to follow up again on the park signage, which is what we started in the beginning of the year. Though it's not directly related to the deliverables for this year, we do want to follow up because that was something that seemed to be of interest to everyone, to make sure that the signage in the park is good. And then we're going to also, in conjunction with the Youth Council and the ADAP Coalition, work with CADA on a town hall meeting on meth, since that was something that the City Council was really interested in. And there is a correlation between meth users and alcohol, obviously. And so that is something that we're going to work on. And those are basically the deliverables for our final year. And we, of course, will do an evaluation and bring the final report back to the City Council. More importantly, we wanted to close with a team perspective, because that's what this is all about for us, to try to encourage youth and to try to stop access to youth. So we have one of our original coalition members, Kenya Ginto, who would just give a brief team perspective on how the grant has affected her and others.
Hi, Madam Chair, Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Kenya Ginto. I've been a member of ADAP since my freshman year, so I've been there for 4 years. I started, now I'm 18 years old and I'm about to go to Costa and Northridge. But before I leave, I've been working with the new ADAP crew to show them all that I've learned and help them on their leadership skills. I honestly can say that ADAP was one of the best experiences in my life, just as like college will be for me. Being a part of ADAP helped me develop my leadership skills, gave me an opportunity to serve my community, and taught me that youth have the skills and abilities to make positive changes in our community and to never give up on what you believe in. I know that ADAP Coalition has a lot to offer youth in Santa Barbara. I know that there will be other youth who will benefit from this experience just as I did, and I hope that City Council will approve the grant renewal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and good luck to you at Northridge. I didn't know you were going there. Congratulations.
Thank
That's
you.
great.
And that concludes our part, Madam Chair, unless you have some questions.
Okay, good pictures. We ought to frame some of those, huh? Brother and sister down there in the lower left. I love it. Mr. Horton.
Susan or others, when there's an adult involved in a purchase, is that followed up with the police? Is there a prosecution, or is it very hard to catch that situation? I'm just wondering how that works out in practice.
They are fined. I'm not the expert on that, and normally when that happens, we are not involved. We don't do a sale without the police department. Like if we do a decoy operation, we're doing it in conjunction with the police department. So when that sale or whatever goes down, the police department takes over whatever happens, but they are fined. I believe it's $1,000.
Wow. Significant. Yeah. Okay, Ms. Falcone.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to say congratulations to everybody for continuing to make this program so rich and so vital for the kids and for all of us, for our community. I'd like to move staff recommendations A, B, and C, and tell you that Northridge is my alma mater. That's where I got my undergraduate degree. So you see, you can do lots of things. Good luck.
You don't have to include that in the motion. Thank you. Ms. Schneider. So we have a motion and a second.
Thank you.
Ms. Schneider.
Just to highlight the importance and how pleased we are to be able to coordinate between the county alcohol, drug, and mental health services and our Parks and Rec services. As you all know, I've been working with the 10-year plan to end chronic homelessness and dealing with homelessness issues, and this is quite related, although it could be without this kind of program where, the past of some of these teens could lead if they got into drugs and alcohol and substance abuse. And the more and more we can coordinate the different departments within the county with the cities on a variety of issues such as this, the better off we are in the long run in terms of a lot of the issues we heard at public comment this morning to this afternoon. I'm going this morning now. But to so many quality of life issues. So I appreciate that you're both here and look forward to our continued relationship and interaction with each other. And congratulations to you also. I gave you the award for the Teen of the Year on behalf of the mayor, so I was pleased that now that's going to go off to Northridge, so congratulations.
And she didn't know where she was going at the time, though. So
right.
this is very good. Very good. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Very good. Thanks for giving us this. And we'll see what we can do in year 6. That'll be something. Item number 18, please.
Item number 18, presentation on the city's streaming video project.
Okay. Just to tell you, I had somebody write me an email and said, you said this and this and this and this. And I thought, I don't remember saying that. So I tried this, and it worked. And I'm not really good, as you know, at it, but I just click, 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 and there I was saying it, and I did say it. So I didn't argue. I said, okay.
It's on the record.
It is on the record, but you can find it. I think I found it in less than a minute. It was really wonderful.
Great.
Mr. Doolittle?
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and council members. I'm Tom Doolittle, Information Systems Manager. This is my first presentation before you, and I'm delighted to offer technology that I think we will significantly improve the outreach and the communication to the citizens of our county, of our city, and offer great services to them. That is streaming video. I have 2 or 3 slides and then a small demonstration of that, and we'll have some fun with that, I hope. Streaming video is the ability to record and publish digital video images across the internet, worldwide, and also to city workstations. It comes in 2 types, on demand and live. Live is just like turning on the TV. You'll see everybody sees the same, and on demand, any of you can watch any part of any meeting and skip to any other part of any meeting on demand. A real brief introduction to the project. 3 phases of the installation and rollout, which is completed. Phase 2 is the expansion to other known areas, and Phase 3 is the exploration of where we go in the future with this. Phase 1 included installation of hardware, software, training of city clerk staff who have been instrumental in this, training of the city TV staff and information system staff, and of course website changes, and all that was completed on July 1st, and we began broadcasting meetings on July 11th. We are now here to announce it as a rollout of the project. Phase 2 is the expansion of other known areas. First of all, we are going to be piloting with the Parks, the Recreation, and the Creeks Commission an evaluation process later in the year to determine how this can expand, because right now we are only broadcasting and publishing city council meetings. We're working very closely with the fire department. We have a project in process right now of providing digital streaming for training sessions out to the remote stations. This will have great benefit to the citizens and as well to the fire department staff. They'll be able to train their staff in the stations, which decreases their response time to the citizens in the event of an incident, and also decreases logistics and scheduling issues for training. We expect that to be starting into production in the November timeframe. We're also working with risk management for safety training of staff. We'll be able to present those to staff workstations, and within the information systems area, we're going to be attempting to do orientations of various computer training. Instead of having people leave their work to go to a training session, they'll be able to watch it on demand at their desk. And the third and final phase is the exploration. We'll evaluate the pilot commission project, determine what its actual training costs were, the setup costs, its value, its benefit, and then determine where we should move on from there. We've already got quite a bit of interest in streaming the Inside Santa Barbara clip, the
Garden-Wise guys, and various other
Yeah.
valuable videos on demand through the internet. And then finally, with department focus groups for additional expansion of where we go. I will now attempt to demonstrate this.
Should be easy. Oh, yeah, he knows what he's doing, and I got it without knowing.
I'm sorry. There are many ways to enter into this. This is the city's website, and there is a City Spotlight article that will be running through the month of August, and that's probably the easiest way to get in. On the quick links section, we have the Watch City Council meetings, and you will be able to get it through the various departmental, off the government slide. You'll be able to go down through the various commissions or departments over time. But we'll just go to City Council. We are offering 2 projects right now. One is live TV on Channel 18. And this has very substantial benefit because Channel 18 is only broadcast in the Goleta, Santa Barbara area. Residents of Carpinteria and other areas don't see it. Now they'll be able to see it, and they'll be able to see exactly what is being broadcast live on Channel 18, along with the calendar of Channel 18, and so they can key in at different times for what they want. So right here is a huge benefit to the community.
So my son in New York can just tune right in, which is sort of amazing, so I can't fool him anymore with what I really do. Huh? That's really neat.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
And then the first, as I stated, the first meeting that we are producing right now is the City Council meetings online.
Uh-oh, I'm afraid.
You click to that and you get
Oh, there it is.
A list of the upcoming City Council meetings. Obviously, this meeting is in progress, so the date wouldn't say 8/1. For those meetings that have been posted, you'll be able to see the agenda and all of the documents for each agenda item, all online, anytime you want.
Tom, are you going to push that in? Is it going to come up on the
I'm going to do
screen?
that at the end.
We'll
I've
try
never
it.
done this, and so it may be
A
very
great
interesting.
smile.
We'll be able to see ourselves on ourselves.
Okay.
So upcoming city meetings, you'll be able to view the agenda, and if you want to view the event live, you click this right here. One of the strongest advantages is it will allow us to see any of the archived city videos. We will keep 1 year's worth on video here. And so for each of those meetings, you can see the duration, you can view the agenda again, you can view the minutes, and you can view the video. So for example, we'll take the 18th meeting, and we'll just click on the minutes. And so you could be going through here and picking out an item that you think is of interest. For example, let's just pick Mason Street Bridge. I'm interested in seeing what that is. You click that, and I have a voice playing sound as well.
And item number 4, contract for construction of the Mason Street pedestrian bridge at Sycamore Creek.
Brenda, you're on TV.
I just wanted to have
So you can see exactly what is going on there.
He's a nice-looking young man.
Yeah. You can also jump to an article, to an item. Specifically, if you knew, for example, let's say item 10, the rehabilitation of the Victoria Street Hotel. You click on that, and it jumps right to that.
Thank you very much. That's a good project. Item number 10, please.
I hate this. I live through it. I just can't stand it.
So you can see the jumping back and forth. You can go down through the minutes, and as you see any item, you go straight to that particular item.
That's very cool.
And likewise, there is an alternative. You can view the video and then select out of the video the same way. I'll just do a very quick briefing of that. This particular meeting started about a minute and 45 seconds into it, so you can turn it. And there's one of our public
I
comments
was reading in
from last meeting. Or you could skip down to any other item.
I know.
And
Yeah,
again,
he's
I skipped
pretty
down
sharp,
to
right?
item number 10. So you can look at the minutes on the right side, click on any document and see the documents, or you can jump to the video, or you can click on that and get to the video. One last bit of demonstration is the search capability. This search is rather simple. It's not as complex as a Google search or anything else, but you can enter search keywords here and pick up something that may be, for example, let's take a look at living wage. That, and by searching on living wage throughout the year, it will bring up a list of every single agenda item that had living wage in it. If you're interested in looking at that, you click on that, and it goes immediately back to the meeting of June 27th, and brings up the living wage article right there. So for the public wanting to see the history of some issue, they can look at every single meeting that has had that item in it.
That's very cool.
Necessary to implement the city's living wage ordinance in accordance with Santa Barbara Municipal.
So that's the 3-second demonstration of this technology. Obviously, you learn best by doing it yourself. We have promoted this with a news release, with a little spot in Inside Santa Barbara, with inserts into the water bill for the month of August, and we're announcing it as ready to go. Any questions?
Any questions? Everybody wants to see themselves.
I will do that. We'll see what.
We're not saying no. I know, it's just like.
Yeah.
It really was very handy the other day.
I have not done this. We'll see what happens.
Okay. Let me do the wave.
This is being offered as by a service out of San Francisco, and so we'll. I have not done this. We'll see what happens.
That was
This is being offered as by a service out of San Francisco, and so we'll. I have not done this. We'll see what happens.
Like an Escher painting, right?
It's the 5 seconds in case we need to be bleeped. Is that the thing?
There is about a 7-second delay in the technology between capturing the video image, turning it into a digital file, and then presenting it to us.
Actually, it's for Brenda to censor you if you say anything inappropriate.
That's good. Good. That's amazing. 7 seconds. That's very amazing. Okay, are there any questions?
If I say anything
Russell?
stupid, Brenda, can you just bleep that too?
Madam Mayor and council members, it will also give you the opportunity to change your votes if you so wish. You know.
Oh, that's good. We can edit it.
Yes,
Good.
absolutely. So, one of the things that, we're really pleased that we're here today to present this project, this program to you, so that we can get the information out to the public. It gives them an opportunity to see what's going on at the council. I also received inquiries from Josh Molina, and we're hopeful that he's going to be writing a story in the news press, and that will also help us to get the information out to the public.
Sure.
Not many communities have this, and we're very proud to have it here in Santa Barbara. It's an excellent tool for the public. It's also an excellent tool for council members who want to review issues, as well as for staff. We often have to deal with some of the issues where research is necessary, and this gives us the opportunity to see the issue live in real time at that point in time when it occurred. Mm-hmm. So we're pleased that we've been able to put this project together, and staff from the information systems and from the city clerk's office have worked very hard in putting this together, and we're very proud of the work that they have done.
Yeah, it looks really good. Anybody? Okay, Ms. Schneider.
Thank you, and this is very cool. And actually, I used it last week to about the appeal, and I wanted to get some specific, who said what and how did they say it, and, trying to follow up with the question afterwards. So I've already used it. Just a suggestion as you go through the prioritization of different commissions, that perhaps meetings related to the upcoming general plan, the SB 2030 meetings, since a big piece of that is to reach out to as many people as we can in the region and to give feedback about the general plan update, that if you're looking for what should be the next streaming archived meetings, perhaps that one I would think would be a good one to start with, just as a suggestion. Okay. But congratulations, this is good. Good stuff.
Thank you.
Good suggestion. Thank you, and it worked very well. Thanks. Okay. Okay, next item number 19. Thanks, Mr. Doolittle.
Item number 19, Airline Terminal Improvement Project Public Information Program.
Okay, Ms. Ramsdell.
Good afternoon. As you know, implementation of the Airline Terminal Improvement Project began last year with development of the program criteria document, which Council approved in December. In May of this year, Council selected the design team for the terminal project, and that design team is HNTB. The schedule to complete design and permitting is about 2008, with construction completion about 2010. Currently, HNTB and staff are completing review of the program criteria document and updating cost estimates since construction and materials costs have risen quite dramatically in the last 6 months. The terminal project is one of the most significant community projects and has high community interest, and at $65 million is thought to be the largest project in city history. The 4-year project duration makes it very important to have a comprehensive program to keep stakeholders in the general community informed as to the progress of the project, and the fact that the terminal and its services will be operational both during design and construction. Now when we do one little thing, people think that that's the terminal project, so it's important to keep people informed. Continued passenger use is important for retention of airline service as well as grant and concession revenues. Toward that end, we distributed a request for proposal for a comprehensive public information program to 28 companies. 3 local teams submitted proposals: King Communications, InfoVision, and Diversity Consulting Group. Each team made a presentation, and staff checked references. Each team met the basic qualification and elements of the request for proposal, and each took a slightly different approach to the project. King Communications was selected as the team that best met the needs of the project. They had a comprehensive plan with creative ideas for implementation and the depth of experience on their team. The proposed scope of work will include development of the overall program, development and maintenance of a project website, media communications plan, development of a project guide, development of presentations, and a stakeholders communication plan. The professional services part of the contract, such as theme development, graphic design, website development, and so forth, is about 40% of the total contract cost, and with 60% being actual deliverables. Some of the work being done in this contract will continue on during the 4 years of the project. The theme will carry forward, the website, and so forth, so those costs won't need to be repeated. Funding for the contract will come from the passenger facility charge revenue that's associated with the airline terminal project. At its June meeting, Airport Commission unanimously recommended that Council approve the proposed contract, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Are there any questions on this? It's pretty straightforward. Mr. Williams and then Mr. Horton.
Well, there's a couple things. I know this is it's a contract for professional services. You're not required to go with the lowest bid because you're looking at expertise in different subject matters. But I always am curious when a proposal does come in that is less expensive than the one that is chosen. And the staff report says that one of the proposals came in at $210,000, which is $40,000 less expensive than this. So I just wanted to kind of get an idea of what was in the cheaper proposal that was different than this. What does this offer that that one doesn't? And, you know, the overall question for me is $250,000 is a lot of money for a, you know, community information campaign. My only frame of reference is political campaigns, and $250,000 is enough to do just about anything. So I want to know, I want to be assured that we're spending all this money wisely. So.
Sure.
Ms. Ramsdale. Madam Mayor and Councilmember Williams, the proposal, each proposer was asked to do a sample or example of a budget for the program that they proposed. So you weren't really comparing apples and oranges. And when it came down to it, what we negotiated were elements that we were particularly interested in, and kind of working with the proposer that we selected on the scope of work. So it wasn't like we just lifted from their proposal their draft program, because they really, you know, at that point, they don't know a whole lot of detail about the project and kind of what we have done in the past. So it's hard to compare kind of apples to apples. But the range we felt was about the same. I mean, in terms of the cost of the different components that they were thinking of.
Can you give me an idea of how many community meetings and mail pieces all of this pays for?
Well, at this point, I can't give you a precise figure, because part of the scope of work is to develop the overall program. We are looking at a brochure that will be used as an insert in the newspaper, as well as a brochure that we can hand out at public meetings to describe the project and the progress we're making on the project. The website, you know, we have a pretty detailed idea of what, you know, that will cost to develop and maintain. So I'm not sure if I'm exactly answering your question.
Well, I guess since 40% of the cost is the professional services, does that mean that the direct costs are 60%?
That's correct.
If we don't know how much materials that's going to pay for, does that mean we automatically spend all of that 60%, or does that mean that that they just report how much that 60% is, and we may be spending less?
We may be spending less, and in fact, this contract may last more than a year. And right now, it's intended to last a year. The idea is, before the year is up, we'll evaluate what we've done, how successful it was, how we're working with the consultant, and if all seems well, we'll proceed to, you know, negotiate a second-year contract, which we'll bring back to you. But we also want to evaluate, you know, what the components are in the program and see how well they're working, if they were worth, you know, the money that we're spending on them, and tweak the program.
Okay. That's very good answers to the questions, and just maybe if you could send me a copy of those direct costs when they come about. I'd be curious, because
sure,
I've done direct mail, so I might have an opinion about it.
Okay.
Thanks.
I don't think we're going to do a lot of big direct mail campaign, you know, mailings. I think we'll be doing a lot electronically, the brochure, but we wanted to make sure we had enough in each budget item or line item to cover whatever we might decide to do in the.
Okay. Well, I'd just be interested
Sure.
in the direct costs. Thanks.
Mr. Horton?
I was wondering, are there any residual benefits to your program from this? Are you going to develop material which could then be used for public information after things are operating? In other words, is it all going to be front end, or will we be left with something, which is kind of a follow-up to what Das was saying? And I'm going to move approval of A and B, and you can answer that question.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Go ahead, Ms. Ramsey.
After the terminal program is over, we'll have several iterations, I assume, by the 4th year of the brochure, and we'll have something in the end that we can use, to tell about the terminal and tell about how it was rebuilt or whatever. Certainly, the project website will last us the whole 4 years of the program. We'll be developing the theme in the first year, but we'll be using it on signage and written materials all the way through the program. Right, correct.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Very good. Thank you very much. Okay, item number 20.
Item number 20, Administrative Citation Program, Update and Unpaid Fines Certification. Recommendation that council adopt by reading of title only a resolution of the council of the city of Santa Barbara certifying the amounts of liens, special assessments sought to be collected from property owners for unpaid administrative fines.
Okay. I was going to say, none of you are Danny Cotto, I know.
Representing, thank you. I'm representing Danny today. I got drafted at the last moment. I'm Lauren Gnosis. I'm Senior Building Inspector and Code Enforcement Coordinator with the Community Development Department. And you know Michelle.
And I'm Larry Cassidy, the Building Inspection Plan Check Supervisor with Building Division as well.
And so I'm not sure how much of this you've read or how much of this you know.
We read it all.
Okay. So all of our enforcement cases at the end of the year get all boiled down to just a number of outstanding fines. And that's on the list presented in front of you. And some of those have changed. Some of the amounts are larger than they've ever been before. We've adopted a new system of fining, and it's by the day. It's outlined through the building code that we're allowed to do this. And these are the outstanding ones that haven't been paid in 90 days, and they will change a little bit. And the final list will be presented to Finance Thursday morning.
Okay, are there questions? Yeah, the numbers were astounding to me. Usually it's a few $1,000s total, 100 here, 500 there. So now we've got 11,000 on one, 21,000 on another one. Big numbers, which, that's the way that is. I'm not questioning the amount. It's just such a change from before. Mr. Horton?
I guess I have one question. I noticed there are, in some cases, of repeated citations, the same individual or company.
But different properties. Is there any kind of a follow-up, or does this follow a pattern that you then work on in some way, or do you just let this happen? Or when you have somebody that repeats half a dozen or 12 times, what happens?
We don't really have a method of going after them. It's we respond to complaints, and we try to pay attention to the properties that we're aware of, and make sure that things get cleaned up. We have a very good rapport with a couple of our repeat offenders, and can call them personally and have things taken care of very quickly now.
Good.
So there's no penalty then?
There is a method of penalizing someone who has a repeat violation within a 12-month period, and we do use that. But it's per property. It is not per person.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you. Oh, we have other people that would like to speak. Mr. House.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Some of the numbers here are pretty significant. I mean, there's a good hunky amounts, 46,000, 33,000, 38,000 on one hand. And then there are some names on this list that we have in front of us here that appear much more often than others. And there's, several violations, if you will, or unpaid fines from at least one person. What's our collection rate? How effective are we in actually collecting what's owed to us here? Do these default in some cases to the sense that we don't ever collect, or how are we doing?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember House, the
the reason we're here today before you is actually part of the collection process. So what happens is the resolution provides that the city can then pursue either a special assessment on the property taxes or a nuisance abatement lien, which is just like a regular judgment lien
Both
on
of
the
which
property.
are very effective in collecting what's owed.
Yes.
Great, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, okay. Ms. Schneider and then Mr. Williams.
Thank you. This might be for Ms. Montez from the City Attorney's Office. Is there a reason why we're looking at per property and not at per individual property owner? So, for example, someone who has, as I think Councilmember Horton, this is what you were trying to get at, someone has multiple properties who are not taking care of any of them. Why wouldn't there be an additional assessment or fee or some sort against that one particular property owner? Because it's spread throughout the city in terms of not complying to codes and regulations and so forth. Is there a legal reason why we can't do that, or is it just something we haven't done?
Well, it's something we haven't done. The code doesn't actually provide for it. It provides that we go after the properties, and that's the only way we can really attach a lien or a special assessment is against the property, not necessarily against the person.
Right. I guess I'm curious if any one of these individuals then ask for a permit to do something else that has nothing to do with enhancing their current properties, if there's a way to flag that in making sure, because I know when anyone wants to renovate their own house or do things that they're abiding by the rules, they're going to have to move into current zoning and current rules that they, may be non-conforming at the moment in time, and they need to correct those if they want to move forward and do something new. And I'm curious if, you have a couple of different property owners who are wanting to do different things throughout the city, and yet they haven't done what they need to do in terms of taking care of other properties, if there's a way to connect that somehow. And I don't know if that's a purchasing issue or building and permitting issue or how that works, but I think Councilmember Horton's onto something, that there needs to be some connection there. Otherwise, multiple properties are just going to go into further disrepair, whereas other properties might be more of a favor, that they like better or something, might be getting better enhancements. So it's something
Actually,
maybe to look at in the future.
There is a method. I'm not sure how much we're using it, but there is a method to tag. The city has a permitting software system. It's called Advantage, where not only all the building permits, but all the master applications and enforcement cases are kept track of. And oftentimes, if there's an enforcement case, it'll be tagged, but maybe we need to work better at cross-referencing the owners so that if one case property, they're trying to obtain a building permit on State Street, but they have an outstanding enforcement case, that it's flagged.
That's the kind of thing I'm thinking about. That would be, I think, an important thing to look into. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, Mr. Williams?
So you'll be bringing this list to Finance Committee soon? Is that what you just said?
Yes, I was told to take it to Finance on Thursday morning. Because the Finance Department.
Oh, the Finance Department.
Some of the fines are being paid right now as we speak. Am I not on? Okay. They're being paid right now, and we will accept payment right up until the last minute. So things do change.
Right.
I would be very interested in options to council or options to Finance Committee or options, wherever you want to present it for mechanisms, if they don't exist already, to particularly target what seem to be malicious and or repeat offenders. To add to Councilmember Horton and Councilmember Schneider's points, there is, one person on this list out of 29 offenses that's responsible for 5 of them, and who's well known in the community is renting properties in substandard condition in a predatory way. And I think that is just the type of person that we need to be spending more attention on, being able to enforce these or step up our, in the absence of response from the offender, being able to step up our response to his lack of response. I did want to point out something really good, though, on this administrative fines and warning letters stats, is that the public has been clamoring for increased and serious creek water quality enforcement. And for years, we had only been giving out warnings and in some cases repeat warnings for violations, but there's 4 citations down there on the list, and so it looks like our Creeks Department is getting a lot serious about enforcement.
Yeah. Mr. Armstrong?
Yeah, I was wanted to respond a little bit to Councilmember Williams. What you're seeing is a much more aggressive response, especially on repeat offenders and people who don't comply. That's why this is by far, the largest, amount that we have ever levied on property owners. So I think what you're seeing already is a demonstration that we're getting serious. And by putting this on the property tax bill, assuming we can get the cooperation from the county, a lien against their property, what we are, I think, is trying to send a really strong message to these property owners that they need to comply when we give them a notice of violation.
I may agree with that for the most part. In this particular case, 2 of the offenses that this person has committed is at a property that I've been trying to get enforcement done for a year. And all I seem to get is, we got to, wait to do it. But there are people living in these apartments in substandard, sometimes very problematic conditions. I think we need to be really serious about particularly the ones that stand out at us.
Well, the repeat offender, one of them we've put we've had a case. Oh, Mr. Casey ran forward.
Good afternoon,
Yes,
Madam Mayor.
go ahead, Mr. Casey.
And Councilmember Williams, I think I'm familiar with the property you're talking about.
Yeah.
We've
The
gone out.
green monsters.
Correct.
Yep.
And we've gone out and we've looked at it and tried to see if there's a code enforcement case on that property. And it's not clear that it is. I mean, the building clearly is not a nice building, but we're looking at code issues that we would have a strong case to go against, and they're not plainly evident. I want to ensure you, though, that we take those conditions and especially that owner in general, because we have such a long history with him, very seriously. It's why we have a great relationship with our city attorney's office that we often turn to assist us to get compliance, and we're looking for every tool we can as well to address the issues associated with that.
One of these on the list looks like it's a zoning enforcement issue, and obviously drug dealing is a step beyond zoning enforcement, but it seems like it's nobody's fault, but it seems like there's something that we can do on this property, and I hope that you can do anything you can.
Yeah. Thank you. Ms. Falcone and then Mr. Horton.
Thank you. These are fines levied pursuant to code enforcements. These are violations of zoning laws or building regulations or so forth. And so it's a natural thing to go toward the property because the violation is specific to that actual entity, which is the property. You levy either the property tax lien, which you can collect every year when the property taxes are due, or you put an actual lien on the property, which is not going to become available and liquid until the property is sold. So there is some sort of way for folks, and I recognize that there are offenders who have offended multiple times over many, many years and decades. But there are also some folks who are individual offenders who, quite frankly, have, the largest chunk of the violations. An individual with 46,000, different individual with 33,000, 38,000, another one with 11,000. So these are folks we want to be able to get to as well, along with the chronic offenders that we all know and love. The question that I am wondering, listening to this conversation, is that, I heard you say that we could do some sort of a tagging pursuant to the software or helped by the software, tracked by the software, that would alert us to when an offender, either a multiple offender or an individual or a one-time offender, is coming in for something else, and that we should at least know about that. And if that means an ordinance change, I know the ordinance committee has a fairly impacted schedule coming up in the not-too-distant future here, but maybe that's something we want to look at as far as plugging that into the ordinance committee. See what we can do. The other thing that I'd like to maybe put a bug in folks' ear is that every once in a while we do go after a personal judgment, especially when you have a repeat offender. I know that our city attorney's office has had success, in particular with the individual that has been referenced here anonymously. And I think that there are definitely opportunities and circumstances under which we should maybe look toward those personal judgments, which are remedies in court only. I mean, there's not something that we can go out and do, but to actually pursue personal judgments, because a lot of people have a great amount of their wealth or their assets are tied up in their properties, but then again, they also have other properties that are not unique, that are not the violation property itself. And there should be a mechanism by way, or maybe they should just understand that we will try to go after your personal house, your boat, your car, your other assets in order to satisfy these violations. So I think what you're hearing here is a whole bunch of folks who say, okay, enough. We're not going to play with you anymore. We want you to be to operate according to Hoyle and be a good citizen. And so I am more than happy to chime in on all of that. And whatever we need to do, I think we should pursue and do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Horton.
I was going to move that we adopt by reading this resolution certifying the amounts of liens and special assessments.
Second.
Excuse me, Madam
Okay.
Mayor. This
Yes.
is a public hearing, so I just wanted to make
Yes.
sure that you announce
you.
that and take comment.
Thanks, and we have no slips, I don't believe, no. No members of the public, so we'll close the public hearing as quickly as we opened it. Okay, and we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thanks for
Madam
the
Mayor, I
reminder.
will
Yes.
abstain since I missed a part of the discussion.
Yeah, you did. That's true. Okay.
Sorry about that.
Thank you. That's okay. Item 21, which is our final item for today.
Item number 21, approval of proposed boundary of underground utility district number 10 and public hearing schedule.
Okay, Mr. Nisich, and I see Jane Brown from Southern California Edison in the back there. Mr. Nisich.
Yes, good afternoon, Council. My name is Tony Nisich, Public Works Director. The item before you today is an approval of a boundary for the underground utility district and an award of contract and to set a public hearing. Just briefly, the council recall that you approved this project as your number one priority under the CPC Rule 20A back in June of '06 after a lengthy process. Just as an aside, I want you to know that we also got our first 20B project now putting together. We're going to be coming to you very shortly because a bunch of homeowners got together and said they really want to do that. So we're going to come to you shortly on that. So the program is working. Today's report is on this underground utility district. It really sets up the district boundary, which we'll show you in a second, sets the public hearing, does some things that we're required to do. The important part is once the boundary is set and we have the public hearing and can adopt the appropriate resolution, that will allow Edison to begin the actual design process, which we think will take 18 to 24 months. Then the construction of about another year or so, hopefully if everything goes well, so we could actually complete this project around 2009, which I know sounds like a long time, but if you saw the number of wires and things we're talking about, things just take longer than we can imagine they could take. But anyway, with that, this is really a positive thing, so I'd like to turn over to Mr. Homer Smith, Principal Civil Engineer, who will give you the formal presentation.
Okay.
And Viva La Fiesta, by the way.
Viva La Fiesta. Mr. Smith.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and Council members. I'm Homer Smith, Principal Engineer with Public Works Engineering. And as Tony indicated, this is the next step in the creation of undergrounding on Cliff Drive. Today's topics are we're going to set the boundary. Next, we'll schedule a public hearing to pass a resolution which creates the underground utility district. And by creating this district, this forever precludes the re-erection or reconstruction of anything above ground in the district. So we need to do that as a public hearing. And we're also going to propose that you approve hiring a consultant to assist in coordinating with Southern California Edison and Cliff Drive merchants and residents during both design and construction. On June 6th, we had only a very preliminary estimate, and we thought that our undergrounding district was going to extend from Fire Station number 6 on the right, just down to Camino Calma. And if you remember, this map had a big question mark and an arrow pointing in this direction, wondering how far we could go. We used that original boundary because Southern California Edison had told us that it would cost around $1.5 million a city block, and we sized our project to $3.5 to $4.5 million, so we thought that this equivalent distance would use that much money. After you approved the project, we hired a Southern California Edison retired planner from Santa Barbara, who I believe you met at the previous session, who worked daily to refine the preliminary estimate. And due to most of the commercial buildings on either side of Meigs Road already being undergrounded, that provided a considerable cost savings that has allowed us to extend the estimate further down, and we feel fairly comfortable, and Southern California Edison has reviewed our refined estimate, that we think we can make it all the way to Mesa Lane.
That's a big chunk. Wow.
This extension was on the original priority list that the Planning Commission approved, although they did put Mission Street as the second choice, but this was the third choice, so we felt it's a logical conclusion to go this extra distance. We're also going to be going up and taking some poles down on Meigs Road, on Lighthouse Street, and on Camino Calma. And then there's about 4 poles in Flora Vista, and past this point, it's already undergrounded. So that's a logical break point also. This revised cost is still $4.2 million, the refined cost. So that's still within our original project of $3.5 to $4.5 million. Southern California Edison, during final design, will do a detailed cost estimate, which may change some boundaries if they're, as we've seen, very escalating construction costs. We won't know until the design is done and the estimate is done in 18 to 24 months. But we have used some cost escalating factors, and we feel fairly comfortable at this point in time. Once Southern California Edison starts the design, which happens after we pass the resolution, the project is really in their hands and control. The public hearing is proposed to be held for August 22nd and is required as a second step. As I indicated, this results in a resolution to create the underground utility district and bans any future overhead facilities. It's at this point that Southern California Edison starts the design, and the resolution will include, as we previously discussed, the ability for Southern California to go onto the property and make the panel conversion. So that will use our 20A money and saving the residents money. However, residents are still responsible for the cost of converting the Cox and Verizon cables. And this can vary anywhere from $0 to maybe $2,500, as I indicated in the report. It's depending upon which side of the house Cox and Verizon are as compared to Edison, whether trenching is required or whether you could just run the cables around the eaves or under the crawl space or through the attic to where Edison is now located. We'll get a better feeling on this as the Edison design proceeds, and again, this brings up the need why we think we would recommend a consultant for the interaction with the merchants and the residents, to work with them to see what potential costs would be, to hold informal public informational meetings, notify the area of the schedules, and then we also need to coordinate between Southern California Edison and the other utilities. And we need to resolve construction issues. So through the proposal process, we selected Facilities Management Service, who has extensive experience in public relations, customer service, and facilities management. And our proposed purchase order is for $45,000, but that's not to exceed. It may not be that total amount. And this is both during design and the construction phase. And as Tony indicated, we anticipate design to take approximately 18 to 24 months, and about a year for construction. So in 2009, we should see this project completed as our underground utility District 10. And that's my presentation. I am ready for any questions or discussion.
Just have a real quick one. So does everybody else, though. But you took this to the Mesa Association, I believe somebody did. And if not, then, pardon me?
I think it was about a year or so ago.
I'm just thinking it was a while ago. So we need to probably go back to them. That would be part of the outreach, I'm sure, because they meet right over at SHIFCO, and their meetings are well attended if they have something like this on their agenda. Well, Ms. Falcone, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just have a very quick question, actually, and that has to do, and you alluded to it, but I'd like a little more elaboration on it. The homes, and I think Marty and I are more familiar with this area than probably most, because we live on the other end of this now new district, but we're not conflicted out, so we're okay. But the houses that you see there along Cliff Drive, around the Flora Vista area, but particularly along Cliff Drive there, exactly right, up to, right in that area, are homeowners that I'm very concerned about in terms of the impacts, the financial impacts, that I know that the deal is to convert the box, but you also said that it was going to be the homeowner's responsibility to convert the Verizon and the Cox, and so I guess what I'm wondering is maybe in conjunction or collaboration or partnership with those other cable entities, is there going to be an opportunity for those folks who may or may not have the wherewithal to have that kind of an outlay, albeit minimal? Is there going to be some opportunity for assistance?
There is. Mr. Smith.
Mayor Bloom, Councilmember Falcone, I know that when Milpas Street was undergrounded, the city used city funds to make connections, and
with merchants or residents or both?
With both.
Okay.
And if you recall, we also have our new 0.5% franchise surcharge, in which we are accruing about $300,000, and we're using that primarily to help Rural 20B underground districts start off.
Right.
But we would have to seek through the city attorney to see if this would be a gift of public funds. But I think since we've set a precedent, we probably could develop some sort of an assistance program.
I don't want to confuse the 20A and 20B monies, because they are very separate and for separate and distinct functions, although they have the overarching the goal of undergrounding things. But most of the district that you've outlined here is commercial. I mean, I can go along and, see all of the various commercials that are there. Yeah. But in that area that I pointed out, those are homeowners, and they're not affluent homeowners. And so I'm concerned that the impacts that I know we're going to take care of, the electricity part of it, but it's the other cable entities of phone and TV that are going to be impacted. They're going to have to take care of it, and it's not something they're expecting to have to do in their lives. So I'm just wondering how we address that.
Okay. Councilmember Falcone, that's correct. Edison will not touch the other, they're not allowed to touch the other franchise utilities equipment. And there are a number of ways in which it could be done with city assistance. We could hire service calls through those franchise utilities, Cox or Verizon, to come out. You could hire an electrician to come out and make the connections.
Yeah, I'm not really expecting you to have an answer to exactly how we deal with this at this particular moment. I just want us to be sensitive to that issue as we move along in this thing. Mr. Nisich?
Yes, Madam Mayor,
Yes.
Councilman Falcone, we certainly will be that. There are a variety of city programs, particularly targeted lower-income people, that may be applicable, and we'll be working through that as we get, hopefully most of these, for the particular ones you are pointing out, won't be the ones with the biggest cost. We're hoping those will be a smaller cost, just because they're fairly small lots, and hopefully the utility connection points
But it's an unanticipated cost for those families, regardless of, in the scheme of things, whether we think it's a lot or not. I just want to bring it up and have it on everybody's radar. Thanks.
Yeah, and we'll be sensitive to it. And again, if it gets to be a problem, as we get along, we'll come back to you and discuss what we've done about it. So.
And, Mayor Bloom and council members, you'll notice that this map is kind of ragged along many areas, and that's because some of these parcels, such as in here, or in here are fed from the back and don't have power coming from the front, so they're already taken care of. So we've had our consultant go out walking each and every property, and a lot of times the people said, "What are you doing here?" And we told them, and it's generally a very good program. But I think it's proper to highlight the fact that there may be a financial impact for both Cox and Verizon, and we're working proactively to see if we can find some way to lessen the impacts to anybody who's in need.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor,
Yes,
Councilmember Falcone, just a point to that too, and that is that it's my understanding, but correct me if I'm wrong, that what we're doing today is actually setting the public hearing. We're not actually formally adopting the boundaries of the district.
Right.
So people can come forward at that public hearing, and if they have opposition to their property being included in that, there's a possibility that it could be excluded. Also, at that time, I think the council can address other alternative ways that people that may be affected financially could be assisted.
Okay, good. Thank you. Mr. Barnwell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, I want to go just a little bit deeper, if I could, on that question. A property owner's refusal to participate, how does it torpedo the process? And is it possible for a single property owner to say no and then cause troubles with what we're doing?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Barnwell, I am not sure that an individual property owner could refuse. Once the district boundaries are established, then they're established, and they would probably have to comply with whatever requirements they are imposed. And I don't know if at that point maybe the city could consider establishing a Proposition 218, a special assessment that would finance those kind of improvements for those property owners to cover those costs, and would then spread it out. There's a lot of different alternatives we could consider, but I don't know that an individual property owner could refuse. They could voice their opposition, and then the council could consider amending the boundaries.
Okay. And on that same topic, Mr. Smith, is there some way, I don't imagine that they would do it, but Cox or the telephone company saying, sorry, find the money somewhere else, we recognize the need to do it. Is that a possibility?
Mayor Bloom, Councilmember Barnwell, I know that in other cities went to continue expeditiously the removal of the overhead systems. Some cities, primarily the ones I looked at of Newport Beach and Manhattan Beach, have gone in and made the connections at city expense and then placed a lien against the property.
Okay.
Just to make sure that all of the lines come down. There's some horror stories that Edison's managers told me, like 7 years one area waited for one property owner to comply.
Well, that's why I asked, because I subscribe to a couple of contractor magazines every month, and I've heard of those stories. I don't know if they're just anecdotal urban myth or if they're real. Another question. Another question that I had was, we talked earlier on this topic, and we discussed sidewalks and ADA ramps and the possibility that in doing the undergrounding, we would be cutting up sidewalks. Is that, do we know if that's the case? And I guess if we do, we will be putting in those ADA ramps, or is all of this in the street? Do we even know yet?
Mayor Bloom, Councilmember Barnwell, at this time, Edison hasn't started the design. Their general intent is to put it in the street between the curb and maybe a trench 4 feet out. I know that they're proposing that for some of the service vaults that would hold the transformers, that although the vault would be in the public street, the access to the vault would be in the right-of-way, or would be in the sidewalk area, so that you don't have to, either that or the right-of-way between the sidewalk and the street, so that you don't have to close the road to work in the vault.
Okay.
I've been contacted by Caltrans, and they advised me, and I believe it's at Camino Calma, that as part of their upgrade, they are going to put in some handicap ramps.
Okay.
We have not included any in this project. We can't use 20A funds to do that. But as we get into the design, I'll work with our streets, Mr. John Wozniak, another principal engineer, to see if there's an opportunity
Well, good. I don't know if you were here, but earlier tonight, we had some public comment on that topic, and there's a school down there, and that ends up in the commercial center as well. That could end up being a path of preference for handicap accessibility on there. So every opportunity we have, I think we want to take advantage of it. Thank you, Madam Mayor. And by the way, thank you for all this work. The 20A thing was a mystery to me, 10 years ago when we first started hearing about it, and now we've actually got some money. And I understand we're actually going into the future 20A money, right? We're betting on the come, so to speak. We got 3 or 4 years in advance notice. Am I correct on that?
Mayor Bloom, Councilmember Barnwell, that's correct. We currently have $2.2 million. In the 2 years it takes to design, we'll accrue another $1.2 million, so that takes it up to 3.4, which is the bottom end of our project. And then we're going to use a little bit of our mortgage ability, where we can use up to 5 years, and we receive $600,000 a year roughly in credit. So that provides another $3 million. And we want to save some of that money for what we call opportunity projects. I know the Haley D. Lavina Bridge, we're looking at undergrounding the systems there with 20A in conjunction with that project.
Well, again, my many thanks. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Mr. Williams?
So I do want to say, first of all, that I truly support this. I'm enthusiastic about it. It's going to look beautiful when it's done. I did want to echo Councilmember Falcone's concern that is an important issue, and I don't think we necessarily have enough general fund monies just sitting around to pay for everybody's, but we may want to look at a needs-based criteria. I'm not sure if there is an existing one that these people will qualify for as a low income or any, but they are struggling working, middle class folks, and $500 might be accomplishable, but $2,500 might be a big hit. And so I think that we want to look at that. We want to look at it through the lens of, obviously this is going to improve the value of their property. So in the long run, it's a deal for them. But in the short run, we should have some other path for folks who may not be able to cope with that cost. And then the other question that I had was on Mayor Bloom's point. Is I really think it's important that we let the La Mesa Association know about this. I contacted a couple of members beforehand, and at least those folks did not know about it. And it was actually asked for by the Planning Commission, and is in the minutes, that the local neighborhood associations should be notified. And we get another crack at this later on this month. So I just hope that we can accomplish that by that time.
Okay, Ms. Schneider? And Mr. House?
Thank you. And just to echo my support for the comments mentioned earlier, and especially also with the curb cuts, it seems like it would be more efficient and cost-effective in the long run, because we have the 225 along that area and converting that into a city street, and the more we can combine those efforts, the better off we'll be, and the less money in the long run we'll be spending anyway. And speaking of money, I just wanted to clarify for those listening, there's a lot of money we're talking about here, and just so for anyone watching or streaming or whatever it is now that we're calling it, to emphasize that this pot of money for this particular project is designated in a specific pool just for this kind of work. We're talking of millions of dollars, and I just want to underline that, because I know there's been a lot of conversations about how the city spends its money and its priorities and so forth, and just to emphasize that this is an important project, and there's a certain kind of fund that came in that goes into a certain pot, and this is all you can do with it. And so it's really not a question, it's more of a statement, but I thought it needed to be emphasized again today.
Mayor Bloom, Councilmember Schneider, I appreciate that very much, and it's good to emphasize that this is not the city's money. In fact, the city does not even hold this 20A money. It's held by Edison and escrow for us. So if we didn't use it for this, another city may ask to be able to borrow against us.
Thank you for that clarification.
I remember when we did Milpas, we were looking for other cities so we could, have some money, and there were a few cities that didn't use theirs, but it was interesting, but they didn't want to give them up either. Very interesting. Mr. House?
Just a couple things. So what has the notice, what noticing has been done so far to the public in the 3 areas? Because we haven't selected one yet, except for this discussion. How have the people living in the areas that we've been talking about known about this? Just through the paper or something? Or have we formally made some notices or invitations to participate?
Mayor Bloom and Councilmember House, I'm working with the city clerk's office, and within the next week, we will send out, mailed to each parcel owner and each parcel resident, notice of this public hearing with a good explanation of what the project is, when that hearing will be held, and again, it's for August 22nd here in council chambers.
But up to now, there's been nothing, right? It's been a dialogue at Planning Commission. There must have been some noticing or information sent out for the Planning Commission hearing. Nobody came to speak, as far as I can tell.
That's correct.
But was there any public notice except for just the agenda that's published from the Planning Commission?
Mayor Bloom, Councilmember House, my knowledge, since I don't do the noticing for the Planning Commission, is that I only know that it went out under the Brown Act in the agenda for the Planning Commission.
Thank you. I just wondered because sometimes when nobody shows up, it means that everything's cool. Another way, it means they don't know about it yet, you know. And under the heading of no good deed goes unpunished, it seems like we really want to make sure that noticing is thorough, and it sounds like you have a consultant that's going to help you with a lot of the PR stuff. But Planning Commission and the City Council have all made a big point of this. I do want to really amplify how important, and this is from my experience of being involved with the project on Milpa Street, and you're trying to head this off, but how important it is for us to be really proactive and be prepared. There will be, even for what may seem like an innocuous, very small amount of additional cost to someone or another, you know, they're going to really, they may feel that as a very big hit and an imposition, even though for us it seems like this great public benefit and, you know, obviously a great gift to them in terms of property value and such. So I think that the degree to which we can use our best offices and our relationship with the cable company and see whomever else is involved and really see what they can do to help Annie up here, partner with us, it would really be good. And be prepared, not in a reactive mode, but in a proactive way. And I think you're onto it, but I just want to really amplify that. Lastly, I think there's this idea of coordinating with other public works type efforts or even private property improvement efforts, the idea that we would stir up the street and then have to stir it right back up again, that's always been something that sort of goes along with the urban myth thing, you know, how it's inevitable that once you get the street really nice and beautiful, you're going to tear it right up again. So let's try to coordinate efforts as best as we possibly can.
Yeah. Mayor Bloom, Councilmember House, in public works we call that the diggers and fillers.
Yeah, there you go.
As soon as we've got something filled, the diggers come back out, and we'll make every effort for that.
Thank you. I have two questions for our attorney, and you were saying that we're not approving the boundary, although it says recommendation to approve the boundary in our notice today, and also it's recommended that the council approve this proposal, the proposal to use the 28 funds for installation and undergrounding past the CPUC conventional 100-foot, et cetera, et cetera. So what would you